It's hard to overstate what a figure Oscar Pistorius was in the world's eye.
Welcome to WatchMojo, and today we're looking at the most infamous celebrities who will be released from prison within the next 10 or so years.
Suge may have actually dismissed his attorney and is thinking of representing himself. Is that accurate?
Jared Fogle.
Investigators looked at nearly 160,000 text messages, more than 47,000 images, and more than 3,300 videos.
For a while there, Jared Fogle was the literal face of Subway. While attending university, Fogle lost nearly 250 pounds eating Subway sandwiches. He was made the company spokesman in 2000 and remained with them for 15 years. But that's when the controversy started. The FBI began looking into Fogle and uncovered a series of crimes, to which Fogle eventually pled guilty.
He now is sentenced to more than 15 and a half years in prison. That's more than even the prosecution asked for.
He received 15 years in prison and is spending his time in Colorado's Federal Correctional Institution, Englewood. Fogle is currently up for release on March 24, 2029, that being his earliest possible release date with good behavior.
He has to have monitors on his phones, on his computers, on all his electronic devices for the rest of his life. Therapy for the rest of his life. Also a $175,000 fine.
Amy Locane.
I'm so tired of being good.
This actress found some success in the early 90s, appearing in movies like Crybaby and School Ties. Unfortunately, tragedy struck in June 2010 when a speeding Locane crashed into another car in New Jersey and killed a woman named Helene Seaman. Authorities proved that Locane was inebriated, with a blood alcohol level 3 times the legal amount. She was convicted of vehicular homicide and given 3 years in prison.
She served a full sentence of about 3 years, but unless she is saved by appeal, she will serve more.
Too lenient? Well, the court agreed. Locane's case was revisited following her release in 2015, prompting a years-long legal battle that stretched into 2020. In September of that year, Locane was resentenced to a further 8 years. She must serve at least 6, meaning she'll be eligible for parole around 2027.
I drove home while I was intoxicated, and the consequences were devastating.
Darren Sharper.
Darren Sharper was one of the best players of the past decade in the NFL. Now he's in jail for numerous sexual assault charges.
Between 1997 and 2010, Darren Sharper was a highly successful NFL safety, playing for the Packers, Vikings, and Saints, winning the Super Bowl with the latter. But almost immediately after his retirement, allegations began to surface accusing Sharper of sexual crimes against numerous women. These allegations continued until 2014, when he was finally arrested on charges of sexual assault.
Sharper agreeing, to multiple plea deals, 9 years behind bars.
This arrest kickstarted a lengthy and complex legal battle, with various prosecutions occurring in multiple states. It ended with Sharper pleading guilty and being sentenced to 20 years in prison. He's currently serving time in the Federal Correctional Institution, Miami, and will be released in 2028.
His lawyer said he's expected to serve a little less than 9 years with no chance of early release, and all of his sentences, when they eventually happen, will be served at the same time.
Jen Shah.
How did you find out what she was doing? Like, for real?
For real, honestly, she told me.
Hailing from Utah, Jen Shah found both success and fame on Bravo's The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. The show began in November 2020, but Shah didn't have long to enjoy her newfound celebrity.
Don't you have an opinion? You're a smart woman. You have an opinion of what's right and what's wrong.
Just 4 months later, in March 2021, Shah was charged with money laundering and wire fraud, with the charges stemming from a telemarketing scheme that Shah used to scam elderly individuals. She pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud and was given 6.5 years in prison. Her sentence began in February 2023, meaning she will be out by late 2029.
There's a sense of relief that I'm going to be able to put the past behind me and finally start truly healing.
Julie Chrisley. Fraud is a very serious crime, and it seems like many celebrities are finding that out the hard way. Julie Chrisley and her husband Todd starred in the USA Network's Chrisley Knows Best, which followed the day-to-day lives of the rich real estate couple.
Come on, Julie.
Julie.
You
were
right.
Oh, that'll never happen.
Their luxurious lifestyle was a major draw to the series, and as it turns out, was mostly the result of bank fraud. In June 2022, both Julie and Todd were found guilty of the crime, as they were defrauding various banks in order to fund their extravagant lives.
But yesterday, a federal jury found them guilty on all charges in their fraud case. Prosecutors say Todd and Julie took out $30 million in fraudulent bank loans to fund their lavish lifestyle.
Todd was sentenced to 12 years in prison, while Julie received 7. She will remain inside until 2030.
Anybody who has to face something like this is going to take it hard, but they're ultimately optimistic about the chances to appeal and to get out of prison much more soon than their sentences would suggest.
Gary Glitter. Best known for Rock and Roll Parts 1 and 2, Gary Glitter has faced a number of serious charges in recent years, including sexual abuse.
As the judge handed down the 16-year prison sentence, there was no emotion from Gary Glitter.
Glitter has been in and out of prison, including a 3-year stint in Vietnam, and in 2015, he was sentenced to 16 years in a British prison.
As Gary Glitter arrived for sentencing today, gone were both the glamour and the rock.
However, he only served half of this sentence and was released in February 2023. Once again, Glitter was free, but this newfound freedom lasted only a month. Glitter quickly broke his license conditions and was sent back to prison, presumably to serve the rest of his sentence. If so, he will be released again around 2031.
His defense team claim Glitter is a very different man now, after seeking professional help.
Elizabeth Holmes.
There's only one thing you need to know about Elizabeth Holmes. She's a fraud, Richard. She's always been a fraud.
One of the most notorious fraudsters in recent memory, Elizabeth Holmes ran Theranos, a private health company that made a revolutionary blood testing machine. However, the technology behind this machine quickly came under public scrutiny, and investigators proved that it was all a giant scam.
Theranos was on the brink of collapse. Big-name investors found their stock was worthless.
The machines did not work as advertised, and Holmes had stolen hundreds of millions of dollars from investors. She was convicted of fraud and sentenced to just over 11 years in prison. However, federal officials claimed that she would likely be released 2 years early owing to good behavior. Her release date is set for December 29, 2032.
Elizabeth Holmes, who was sentenced to 11.5 years in prison, will now spend just over 9 years in prison.
Shannon Richardson. This actress found a modicum of success on shows like The Walking Dead and The Vampire Diaries. She wasn't a household name by any means, but she became one after mailing poison to Barack Obama.
This person sent ricin, which is toxic and deadly, to the President of the United States of America, let alone other figures.
In 2013, Richardson mailed a series of letters that were laced with ricin, the poison made popular on Breaking Bad. These letters were addressed to prominent politicians, including President Obama and New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg.
She said, "I never intended for anybody to be hurt. I'm not a bad person. I don't have it in me to hurt anyone. I do love my country and I respect my president."
At the time, Richardson was going through a divorce and attempted to frame her ex-husband Nathan, telling police that he mailed the letters. However, an investigation proved this was false. Richardson was sentenced to 18 years in prison, but will be released early in November 2028.
Now, when it's a right-winger who doesn't want their quote-unquote guns taken away, what do you mean? What, Mary Shannon Guess Richardson? Guess who? I don't know. Never heard of her.
Josh Duggar.
Josh Duggar and his family are portrayed as a picture of wholesome perfection. Now that show has been pulled.
TLC had a huge hit with 19 Kids and Counting, a reality show following Michelle and Jim Bob Duggar and their, 19 kids. The eldest is Josh Duggar, who was featured prominently throughout the series. But controversy has followed Duggar throughout his life, much of it related to sexual abuse.
Josh was given a very stern talk by the officer, but no charges were filed. More than a decade later, In Touch magazine would blow the lid off the scandal.
Once again, we will not get into specifics owing to the sensitive nature of the crimes, but they were bad enough to attract the attention of Homeland Security. Following a federal investigation, Duggar was arrested by U.S. Marshals on April 29, 2021. He was later sentenced to 12.5 years in prison and could be released in October 2032.
We respect the jury's verdict and we look forward to continuing this fight on appeal. We have no more comment at this time.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Suge Knight. co-founder of Death Row Records, Suge Knight played an enormous role in the popularization of gangster rap, releasing acclaimed albums like The Chronic, Doggy Style, and All Eyes on Me.
See, it'll work. All right, this business, Suge. Come on, man. Anyway, what's this you working on, cuz? I like this.
Yet despite the influence on pop culture, controversy has long followed Knight, including a history of violence and relentless legal troubles. These culminated in January 2015, when Knight hit 2 men with his truck in Compton, California.
Suge Knight was lured to this hamburger stand and then was ambushed there. He said he thought by 3 men who were known gang members.
Filmmaker Clee Sloan suffered serious injuries, and record executive Terry Carter was killed. Knight pled no contest to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 28 years in prison. He will become eligible for parole in October 2034 and will be 69 years old.
You'll waive his appearance, Your Honor. Is that correct, Mr. Knight? Yes, Your Honor. Okay.
What do you make of their releases? Let us know in the comments below.
You can talk tough all you want, but this ain't no record. Don't make me change you, Eric.